live. I think I'm working. Yep, I'm working. All right, class. I just posted this just now, so it is live. I don't know if some of you will be able to get onto this or not. It's kind of the first time I've done this. It is lunchtime, so there's gonna be some things going on in my background. My wife is making lunch, which is awesome because I'm super duper hungry. And Dylan's doing his Zoom call with his class right now in first grade. Just to make sure, and I think this is important, that you do that checklist that I just posted. It's kind of an accountability reflection checklist. So it has some questions on what you did today, and just make sure that you are able to stay on track and do all your assignments if you finish your ELA. So you have iReady lesson on cause and effect. Then you have your iReady path, and then you have your book and your Google Docs summary to do. And then also, if you didn't do your spelling, city, and word work yesterday, you're supposed to complete that today. Make sure you turn in your words on your Google Doc or your sentences on Google Doc. Then you can use some of the spelling city games to practice your words. After that, I want you doing math, going to Mrs. Colonna's math page. I think she went late on you today. And make sure that that is finished, any assignments that she has on her page. If you have science, make sure you do her science assignments. If you have social studies, make sure that you do your ReadWorks article and assignment for today as well. And that is it. That's pretty much it. Make sure you go to your specials and do a special. And I believe that is all that we have for you today. So very late day. It is a nice day outside. So hopefully you're able to get out a little bit. I think there's a couple showers here in the area, but for the most part, it's a super nice warm day, and hopefully you're able to get outside. All right, so let's get to our read aloud. Some of you asked that they had homework this weekend. Obviously, you don't have any homework. You never have homework on Fridays. But if you have to catch up on any assignments over the past week that you did not complete, then I need you to do those. So that's kind of, where you're at. If you didn't get to any assignments, maybe use the weekend. We're still not supposed to go out to different places this weekend. So going to have some time to, catch up on any assignments that you didn't get to. So what I do want to do is go over Mr. Popper's Penguins. So this is going to be our read aloud that we're going to do. And occasionally I'm going to ask you some questions related to our read aloud. We did this with Zoom this past week, and you guys were able to raise your hand, and I was able to ask you questions. Unfortunately, we can't use Zoom yet, so hopefully that gets resolved sooner than later. But I could still do my read aloud, and then maybe in the comment section, I'll post a question, and then you guys can kind of chime in on your question. To go over the last two chapters that we've done in Mr. Popper's Penguins, we learned about Mr. Popper, who Mr. Popper is. So he lives in I forget what his, oh no, can't remember where his, Stillwater, yes. Stillwater, he lives in Stillwater. He's a painter. He has a family, he has a wife, and he has 2 children. And he is a little kind of just not really happy that he's led his life and has not been able to travel the world. So we found out that he is interested in a North Pole and the South Pole, and he wants to go on an expedition, and he loves penguins, and he wants to kind of go to these different places because he wants to experience life. He wants to travel. And so in chapter 2, we found out that he was messaging some people from the South Pole, the scientists that were there. He always wanted to be a scientist. And they said that they have a surprise for him. So when they talked to him through the radio, they said that they have a surprise. And we were kind of making predictions yesterday as to what the surprise is. We said maybe he's going to be included on the next expedition to the South Pole or trip to the South Pole. And then I think someone said Maybe they're going to send a penguin to his house and he can have a pet penguin. So I don't know. So we're going to leave off. That's kind of where we left off yesterday, chapter 2. And then today we're going to read chapter 3. And it is called Out of the Antarctic. Talking about the Antarctic and building your background knowledge about the Antarctic, we said in our social studies classes, or at least my homeroom, that the Antarctic is in the South Pole. We said it's the only continent that does not have permanent residents year-round. And the reason for that is because it's so cold and windy and not a lot of supplies. And, it's just not a great place to live the entire year. There are some scientists that make trips there. But other than the scientists and the penguins, that's pretty much all we know lives in the Antarctic. So it's covered in ice and snow, and it's not a great place to live if you like nice weather. So that is some background knowledge and information about the Antarctic. So now I'm going to read the story, chapter 3. What with the excitement of having the great Admiral Drake speak to him over the radio and his curiosity about the Admiral's message to him, Mr. Popper did not sleep very well that night. He did not see how he could possibly wait to find out what the Admiral meant. When morning came, he was almost sorry that he had nowhere to go, no houses to paint, no rooms to paper. It would have helped to pass the time. Would you like the living room papered over? He asked Mrs. Popper. I have quite a lot of paper number 88 left over from the mayor's house. I would not, said Mrs. Popper firmly. The paper on now is plenty good enough. I am going to go to the first meeting of the Ladies' Aid and Missionary Society today, and I don't want any mess around to clean up when I get home. Very well, my love, said Mr. Popper meekly, and he settled down with his pipe, his globe, and his book of Antarctic adventures. But somehow, as he read today, he could not keep his mind on the printed words. His thoughts kept straying away to Admiral Drake. What could he have meant by a surprise from Mr. Popper? Fortunately for his peace of mind, he did not have to wait very long. That afternoon, while Mrs. Popper was still away at her meeting and Janie and Bill had not yet come home from school, there was a loud ring at the front door. I suppose it's just the postman. I won't bother to answer it, he said to himself. The bell rang again, a little louder this time. Grumbling to himself, Mr. Popper went to the door. Who do we think is at the door? I don't know. It was not the postman who stood there. It was an expressman with the largest box Mr. Popper had ever seen. Party by the name of Popper live here? That's me. Well, here's a package that's come Air Express all the way from the Antarctic. Some journey, I'll say. Mr. Popper signed the receipt and examined the box. It was covered all over with markings. Unpack at once, said one. Keep cool, said another. He noticed that the box was punched here and there with air holes. Oh, I think I know what is in the box. You can imagine that once he had the box inside the house, Mr. Popper lost no time in getting the screwdriver, for by this time, of course, he had guessed that it was the surprise from Admiral Drake. He had succeeded in removing the outer boards and part of the packing, which was a layer of dry ice, when from the depths of the packing case he suddenly heard a faint ork. His heart stood still. Surely he had heard that sound before at the Drake Expedition movies. His hands were trembling so that he could scarcely lift off the last of the wrappings. There was not the slightest doubt about it. It was a penguin. Mr. Popper was speechless with delight, but the penguin was not speechless. Ork, it said again, and this time it held out its flippers and jumped over the packing debris. It was a stout little fellow, about 2.5 feet high. Although it was about the size of a small child, it looked much more like a little gentleman, with its smooth white waistcoat in front and its long black tailcoat dragging a little bit behind. Its eyes were set in two white circles in its black head. It turned its head from one side to another, as first with one eye and then with another it examined Mr. Popper. Mr. Popper had read that penguins are extremely curious, and he soon found out that this was true. For stepping out, the visitor began to inspect the house. Down a hall it went and into the bedrooms with its strange, pompous little strut. When it or he, Mr. Popper had already begun to think of it as a he, got to the bathroom, it looked around with a pleased expression on its face. Perhaps, thought Mr. Popper, all that weight. I'll show you the picture of our little stout little friend. Tiling reminds him of ice and snow at the South Pole. Poor thing, maybe he's thirsty. Carefully, Mr. Popper began to fill the bathtub with cold water. This was a little difficult because the inquisitive bird kept reaching over and trying to bite the faucets with its sharp red beak. Inquisitive. That's a big word. What do you think that means? Well, let's see if we can find some context clues. Carefully, Mr. Popper began to fill the bathtub with cold water. This was a little difficult because the inquisitive bird kept reaching over and trying to bite the faucets with its sharp red beak. So that's an example context clue. Someone who's inquisitive maybe sometimes does some things to look for things. So reaching over and trying to bite the faucets. So I'm trying to make a movie in my mind of what the penguin's doing. That helps me with the meaning of the word inquisitive. Maybe he's curious. Yes. Finally, however, he succeeded in getting the tub all filled. Since the penguin kept looking over, Mr. Popper picked it up and dropped it in. The penguin seemed to not mind. Anyway, you're not shy, said Mr. Popper. I guess you've got sort of used to playing around with those explorers at the pole. When he thought the penguin had enough of a bath, he drew out the stopper. He was just wondering what to do next when Janie and Bill burst in from school. Papa, they shouted together at the bathroom door, what is it? It's a South Pole penguin sent to me by Admiral Drake. Look, said Bill, it's marching. The delighted penguin was indeed marching. With little pleased nods of his handsome black head, he was parading up and down the inside of the bathtub. Sometimes he seemed to be counting the steps it took. 6 steps for the length, 2 steps for the width. 6 steps for the length again, and 2 more for the width. For such a big bird, he takes awfully small steps, said Bill. And look how this little black coat drags behind. It almost looks as if it was too big for him, said Janie. But the penguin was tired of marching. This time, when it got back to the end of the tub, it decided to jump up the slippery curve. Then it turned, and with its outstretched flippers, tobogganed down on its white stomach. They could see that those flippers, which were black on the outside, like the sleeves of the tailcoat, were white underneath. Gook, gook, said the penguin, trying its new game again and again. What's his name, Papa? Asked Janie. Gook, gook, said the penguin, sliding down once more on his glossy white stomach. It sounds something like Cook, said Mr. Popper. Why, that's it, of course. We'll call him Cook. Captain Cook. And then we're getting to chapter 4. Okay, so we read our chapter today. Now we know what the surprise was from the Admiral. It was a penguin. My wife was correct in her prediction that the Admiral was going to be sent to Mr. Popper as a gift. And now he's got to take care of a penguin in his house. Imagine if you had to take care of a penguin in your house. It could be a good little writing topic, yes. Not today, because you have enough things for you to do today. But maybe on Monday, I give you a little writing prompt. What would it be like to live with a penguin as a pet in your house? So start thinking about that over the weekend. Just imagining living with a penguin in your house. I don't know if that's going to be fun, chaos, or just a bad situation. I don't know. Kind of depends on if you have other pets in your house as well. And if it's potty trained and if it's, a good penguin or not. And it has to be cold enough for the penguin. Yeah, so you're going to turn your air conditioning on. So anyway, we could have some fun with that little writing prompt maybe on Monday. All right, if you have any questions about your assignments, please let me know through Google Classroom or Class Dojo. I hope everybody has a good weekend. Stay safe. Try to get outside a little bit today, and keep working hard. A lot of you, some of the iReady lessons are time consuming. Take a break if they're getting too long. Make sure that you're, I don't want your head into the computer for, hours straight. Take a break. Get a power snack. Go outside. Do some exercise. Just try and make it as fun as possible. I know this is a tough situation for everybody, but I think we're doing a pretty good job, and I'm very proud of all of you, parents and children at home, making this experience as rewarding as it can be. But it's also something that I think could go on for a little bit. So we have to make sure that we're still learning. And the one good thing is, like I said, we've learned most of the standards this year, so now it's just going to be revisiting those. Next week, we're going to go heavy on writing. So pretty much all of your extra lessons are going to be revolving around your animal research, and we'll get to those next week. So it'll be iReady lessons and writing pretty much in social studies. So I'm not going to do a lot of writing. It'll be a little bitty lesson. Hello. Oh, there's Oreo. I don't think I showed everybody Oreo. That's our new guinea pig. How old is he now?
Remember me?
I don't remember. They're not here for you. They're here for me.
Who cares? I'm here now. I'm the someone.
You get your own YouTube channel.
We got him. Martin Luther King Day.
So almost 2 months old. Yeah. He's getting bigger. And he weeks.
Better.
Yep, and that's a good thing. And he really likes Izzy. All right, Mommy. You can't be in the video either. It's my video. All right, so I hope everybody has a good weekend. If you have any questions, let me know. Make sure you fill out that checklist that I just posted to make sure you've done all of your assignments for the day. I'm going to post that every single day. Check-ins will be 8:30 in the morning. It might not be Zoom. It might be what I did this morning with a Zoom video that you guys can't get into, but I can kind of show the computer screen. And then at 1 o'clock, we'll always do Mr. Popper's Penguin Read Aloud, and then check in. And if you have any questions, you can always kind of fill in the comments underneath the video. I'm going to post this video just in case. I don't see a lot of live people right now, but I'm going to post it on Google Classroom page so you can kind of comment underneath the video. All right, have a good day.